From the City of Angels off the Pacific Ocean, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie, and welcome to Coast AM. I've got some audio of what some say is an angel singing in a Kansas City church. It's pretty difficult to hear, and it is very quick, but we'll play that for you sometime this hour. In next hour, the astounding tribal medicine man, Red Elk, on his final voyage, and we've got him live here on Coast AM next hour. Well, stocks slumped Tuesday on worries about economic growth at home and abroad, sending the Dow Industrials to the biggest point drop since the day the market reopened after the 9/11 attacks. A big decline in Chinese stocks, weakness in some key readings on the U.S. economy, and news that Vice President Dick Cheney was the apparent target in a Taliban suicide bombing attack in Afghanistan, all fueled the selling on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled 416 points. It was down over 500 for a while, the biggest point loss since September 17th of 2001. The New York Stock Exchange officials are investigating whether a technical glitch contributed to this dramatic plunge in the Dow that saw the blue chips average point loss double and up to 200 points in just a matter of minutes. In a moment, the Merlin Project boys will join us as we talk about this plunge. Merlin, the software giant, well, it predicted this collapse. An astounding video uncovered from the archives shows the BBC reported on the collapse of the World Trade Center Building 7 over 20 minutes before it fell at 5:20 p.m. in the afternoon of 9/11. The footage shows BBC reporter Jane Standley talking about the collapse of the Salomon Brothers building, that's number 7, while it remains standing in the live shot right behind her head. And minutes before the actual collapse of the building was due, the feed to the reporter mysteriously dies. And there's more on the story, so we're checking in now with Alex Jones. Websites Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com. Alex, this one is going to add fuel to the fire, isn't it?
George, this is the biggest 9/11 story we've ever seen. It has gone supernova on the web. And since we did more research, we discovered that Aaron Brown, around the same time on CNN, announced that it had collapsed with it behind him, reading off a teleprompter. We also now found BBC 24, their other feed, with separate reporters saying the exact same thing, saying just in, the North Tower has collapsed. It has caused fires. Building 7, the Salomon Brothers building, has collapsed. Then BBC began demanding that Google and YouTube pull all these clips, and then today, and we have this up on PrisonPlanet.com, new report I just finished 25 minutes ago up on JonesReport.com. That was my only webmaster that was still at work.
Still working today.
So it's up on, I was just at the office. I just drove home to do this interview. Up on JonesReport.com, we have the latest developments with the CNN clip and another BBC clip where they're saying, we've been told Building 7 has collapsed, and it's right behind them. Now, we have literally over 75 police, firemen, and emergency workers on record who said they were told it was going to be brought down by the government via controlled demolition to save buildings nearby. Here's the problem. It takes weeks, if not months, to blow up a building. Just last Sunday here in Austin, they tried to blow up the old Intel building. The demolition failed. Front page of the Statesman on Monday. So it's hard to do. It takes months and sometimes longer to set these up properly. Building 7 was filled with the FBI, CIA, Defense Intelligence. The whole thing basically was a mini CIA building, the emergency bunker. We know it was brought down by controlled demolition.
Now, what's your theory, though, Alex, with the fact that, let's just center in on this BBC reporter for just a moment, which,
Sure.
By the way, I'm told today they also claim that those tapes are no longer available.
Yes, I'm looking right now at the BBC, the editor, the head of BBC World News, Richard Porter, has put out a press release at BBC's own website, we have links to it, saying that they can't release the original archives because they can't find them. That there's been I've now talked to a CNN archivist who I'm friends with, And they say that they record on triple machines and even computers in 2001. They say that is impossible, and we've caught the BBC using clips from this in recent productions. It's not true.
Now tell me the significance, and tell me your theory, the fact that she's standing far away but in front of building number 7, saying that it has collapsed, and you can see it behind her intact. What does this mean to you?
When they introduce her, in London, they give the official line that it fell because the North Tower fell into it, which isn't true.
And they're crawling underneath her that it's collapsed.
Yes, they're crawling underneath her that it's collapsed. So they've got now we've got Aaron Brown, CNN, and another BBC, because they have like 5 channels, saying the exact same thing at the exact same time. This all starts 28 minutes before it collapses. This was basically the Black Ops squad above our government that's behind many of the militants. We've talked about this before, putting out their official story because they knew that 7 falling wouldn't be bought by the people, and somehow their scripting got off, and so it got out in time.
Oh, so it got out before the building actually came down.
It was a false start.
Oh, my gosh.
This is so...
You know what this reminds me of? And, Alex, we've got to run, but we're going to get you back at this in depth because I'm going to put together more on this story. This reminds me, when I was 13, but I heard about this, of the Lee Harvey Oswald days when Kennedy was assassinated, when apparently it was already printed in European newspapers
and Japan
that he was the assassin before they even caught him.
Well, before Kennedy was even killed, it was printed in Tokyo and China and Australia, and I have the original news articles. I'm actually making a film about that. One of them cost me like $700.
Okay, well, more on this. More on this. Websites, which ones do you recommend tonight?
Jones Report, we sent it to Lex, but it's up on jonesreport.com. I literally, just 30 minutes ago or so, finished a detailed report with the CNN, the second BBC, because at first they were saying, oh, it's a screw-up, it's a timestamp. No, Building 7 is right behind her. She steps aside, and then she seems shocked. Then suddenly the satellite feed cuts out, and they cut back 5 minutes later when it has collapsed and go, oh, see, it's collapsed.
Yeah, you're right. All right, Alex, keep in touch with me.
George, thank you. This is the biggest thing I've ever seen. Thanks for having me on.
It is a bizarre story, folks, and it is going to be a big one, mark my word. In San Diego, a human head and a hand found Tuesday along 2 busy San Diego freeways may belong to an unidentified man discovered floating in a river. A tow truck driver spotted a black plastic bag containing the head on the southbound Interstate 5 around 6:30 in the morning. The left hand was found by a freeway maintenance worker less than 2 hours later. Police believe the body parts belong to a man whose torso was found Monday floating in a river under the interstate. They described the victim as balding, 60 years old, a white male with a mustache, glasses, was wearing a plaid shirt and jeans. Strange story there. Yesterday, we had the story about Al Gore's house and the fact that the Tennessee Center for Policy Research claimed that he was spending close to $30,000 a year in power utility bills, 20 times more than the average American spends. They found that to be a little hypocritical in light of his Oscar-winning global movie, An Inconvenient Truth. Well, today we've got a statement from the Gore camp, and it's only fair to give that to you. Kaylee Kreider, Al Gore's spokesperson, doesn't dispute the numbers of the report, but she says the numbers need a little context. She says that Gore's message is consistent with his lifestyle. He has said that families and organizations are going to use different amounts of energy and that they should first determine their carbon footprint. Now, that is the overall energy usage in terms of carbon emissions, and do their best to reduce it. The Gore's home carbon neutral, according to Kreider, meaning that the overall household use of carbon-based energy, like coal-fired power plants and natural gas, is offset either by more fuel-efficient technology or through programs aimed at reducing greenhouse gas-producing energy. Now, one is through the local power company, the huge Tennessee Valley Authority, which runs what is called the Green Power Switch program that uses some renewable energy like wind and solar. The second is through a so-called carbon credit program in which the Gores pay money to invest in a third party to reduce the 1 ton of carbon emissions for every ton of carbon the Gores emit. So there's no question he's spending more money than most Americans on power, but He apparently is doing all he can to reduce that in terms of the emissions. NASA says that a hailstorm the previous evening had caused such damage to the Space Shuttle Atlantis external's liquid fuel tank that the scheduled March 15 launch of the mission's STS-117 would have to be pushed back now to at least late April. Richard C. Hoagland from the EnterpriseMission.com on the line with us right now. Richard, how many dings do we have there in the external liquid fuel tank?
Last time this happened was 1999, STS-96, and there were close to 700 hits or dings from hailstones falling in Florida on the shuttle tank. They counted this afternoon upwards of 7,000 dings on this tank. In fact, it's so bad that the launch actually may be delayed until July, because on Sunday they're going to roll her back. This is Atlantis. They're going to roll her back with the tank and the solid rocket boosters into the vertical assembly building, which is 3.5 miles away. They'll then do a thorough inspection because they have the cranes and the platforms and all that and the lighting. And depending upon what they find, they'll either try to do a repair with the shuttle still attached, the orbiter still attached with the wings.
Right.
If they can't do that, they will have to demate the shuttle orbiter. And to prepare for that, they've actually made plans now to take the payload out at the pad and store it in the retractable service structure, which is what they do when they are uploading the payload into the payload bay, which is a prior condition to demating the orbiter from the tank.
I got to tell you, Richard, what can go wrong will go wrong with these shuttle programs, huh?
Well,
gosh.
The big picture here, of course, is the impact on the shuttle program and the impact on the space station program. Let's always keep our eyes, when we talk about this NASA program now, these two programs, shuttle and station, are impediments to what NASA really wants to do, which is go back to the moon and on to Mars. And as you know, George, because we had dinner in Los Angeles after my Expo presentations, we have now presented some stunning additional evidence of amazing ancient structures on Mars. So these two programs are really albatrosses, financial albatrosses around the neck of NASA, and there's a whole bunch of people in and outside of NASA that would love to see these programs canceled early, well before 2010 when the shuttle is supposed to be retired, and the new, rockets and boosters and spacecraft, Orion, etc., brought online. But that cannot happen as long as we have a shuttle so fragile that a line of thunderstorms last night crossing the Cape produced damage that may require that they literally send this tank back to Michoud, which is the facility in New Orleans, and wait until April to get the next tank in the flow in the service stream into the Cape, remake the shuttle, do the checkouts and all that. That's why there could be a delay up to July for this mission.
And that email I sent you today that you've been working on, those Mars pictures,
yes.
As soon as you're ready, you let me know, okay?
Okay.
All right, very good. Richard C. Hoagland, EnterpriseMission.com. Go to his website. He updates it every day, and he puts some incredible space news on there, and there's lots lately. Well, as I mentioned, the Dow Jones just about collapsed today, over 400 points, down at one point over 500 points, down 200 points in an hour. What the heck is going on? All we do know is Merlin, the software program, predicted this. So in a moment, Paul Gersio, Dr. George Hart will react, and maybe they'll try to steer us into a way where we can make a little money during this incredible time period. Well, the boys are back. Paul Gersio, nationally respected futurist and longtime student of traditional and esoteric predictive systems. More than 25 years now research into all kinds of psychic-type sciences, and collaboration with Dr. George Hart resulted in the creation of the Merlin Project, which we're going to talk about. Dr. George Hart, of course, is a physicist who specializes in the application of supercomputers. Their website, got a couple of them linked up now at coasttocoastam.com. Paul and George. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back.
Yes, George. Interesting day.
Merlin does it again.
Well, I take no credit for this. This is Dr. Hart's baby. I'm telling you. When I talk to your clients, your listeners, who are now in many cases our clients, I'm doing the individual lifestyle things, relationships, job, career moves, that kind of thing. But these larger international events, things like market movements and whatnot. This is George's area of expertise, and boy, he hit this one right on the nose.
He did. George, tell me about this. I kind of mentioned it was a collapse. This is the biggest drop since 9/11. It's huge, and it tells me there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
Well, that, and George, it reflects an instability in the market. We've seen over the last 5 or 10 years, you can wipe out 4 or 6 months of steady small gains in an hour. And that scares a lot of individual investors away. There are several reasons why it now happens like that. One is a progressive deregulation of the stock market. It's almost like what's happened with the airlines, and sometimes with equally disastrous results. Beyond that, with large hedge funds shorting stocks and sometimes profiting from driving them down, they wait and drool over opportunities to do what they're able to do today. Just by pushing stuff to the edge and then over. You have large institutions, mutual funds and pension funds, switching so-called sectors from maybe growth stocks into so-called defensive stocks, soup, soap, soda, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Campbell Soup, in a finger snap, where once upon a time it would take a week or so to make those position changes. You've got the exchange-traded funds and the index funds where people can just unload their whole portfolio with a very quick click of the mouse. And so this thing has become as unstable as a Formula One race car.
The Nikkei index in Japan this morning over there is already plummeting. So what does that mean for stock investors Wednesday when the market opens again?
Well, the important thing there, and Paul and I have been watching this closely all night, is that the key exchange in that part of the world, the Shanghai exchange, which lost 9 to 10% yesterday, actually has gained about 1.5% during their trading day. So it looks like China is holding, and that's the important thing. What had happened there over the last year, where their index in Shanghai had more than doubled, was even beyond what we had here in 2000 with the dot-com bubble. You had individuals remortgaging their homes to play the market. You would have them going into merchants with their credit cards and making fictitious purchases so they could get money to play with stocks at a better rate than getting a cash advance. It had gotten that extreme. So there may be a healthy dimension to what we're seeing here of taking out some of what Alan Greenspan called irrational exuberance.
Paul sent me the track lines of the NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, and gold, and they all have their spikes right around now.
And another key one that he sent you was Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, who's had a nice sort of swan boat ride down the river up to this point, not having to adjust interest rates much at all. There was a lot of rumor on the street that perhaps in May he would start lowering rates to give the economy a bit of stimulus. After that durable goods report today, Bernanke's hand may be forced. And when we were on your show a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this, where there's something he may have to do to stimulate our economy, but in doing that he will devalue the dollar a bit, and that will not please the Chinese. So there's a very delicate minuet that Bernanke now has to play with the Chinese.
And, Paul, these spikes don't seem to go away. They're going to hang on for a while.
No, the interesting thing about it, George, is that if you take a look at the window in 2009, and this is also true in Bernanke's run, the trend lines actually shift all at the same point, both on the NASDAQ and the NYSE, and on that run for the U.S. going off the gold standard back in '71. And it's interesting. I know you pay attention to gold. If you take a look at where the gold run-up actually started, it almost exactly parallels the transition point in 05-06 on the Merlin run.
Absolutely. Well, Paul Gersio, George Hart, we're going to get you back again at the greater length, of course, but unbelievable story today with the Dow Jones dropping over 400 points. And you've got to go look at their websites. One is, of course, projectmerlin.com, but they're linked up at coasttocoastam.com. And just take a look at some of the things that Project Merlin does. I mean, if you're looking for a consultant, and I recommend Project Merlin. So you're not human, but he's probably better than that, to tell you the truth. I'll be back in a moment. I'm going to tell you a little bit about an angel that reportedly was singing I'm not kidding you, in a Kansas City church, and then we bring in intuitive remote viewer Sean David Morton. Perhaps we're going to try to get him. We'll be back. Got some stories here that we didn't have time to tell you because we had so many guests coming in. But there's some ladies having dinner at a school in Texas. They claim to have found the image of the Virgin Mary on the bottom of a pizza pan. After scrubbing failed to shift it, rumors spread of a divine apparition, and now pilgrims are flocking to a makeshift shrine in the cooking tray's honor. One woman came to the school in Houston seeking healing for her disabled grandson. And there is a church in Kansas City, Kansas, that they were recording the playing of music at the time. Just recording the playing of music, organ music and everything else. When they played the tape back, they heard the sound of something angelic singing Hallelujah in the background. And they believe it to be an angel. It's an incredible story. Now, I'm going to play for you in a moment a very short clip. You'll hear the angel singing Hallelujah. It's very short. It's very muddy. But listen closer. And Dan, do we have the capability of playing it back twice? Yeah. We can do that. Okay, we're going to do that for you. Okay, this was in a church in Kansas City, Kansas, where the parishioners actually now believe that there was some kind of angelic intervention. Okay, now you hear that voice in the background. There was no one there singing that chorus like that. And also some experts said there's no way a human being could sing that high. It was weird. I'll play it for you one more time. Isn't that incredible? It's simply incredible. I tell you, if you believe in angels, it puts goosebumps on you, to be sure. Romanian witches are carving out a lucrative new business, concocting spells to help locals get European grants. Until now, the country's witches have confined themselves to love potions and spells to get cows to produce more milk. But the European expansion has been funding for new projects, and now they're going all out with that. And in London, a mother who feared that she might lose custody of her obese 8-year-old son, unless he lost some weight, has been allowed to keep the boy after striking a deal with social workers to safeguard his welfare. The case has set a debate over child obesity and raised questions about whether genetics, junk food, or bad parenting is to blame. Little Connor McCready of England, he weighs 218 pounds. He's 8 years old. He's 4 times the weight of a healthy child his age. When we come back, it'll be Sean David Morton. We'll get his take on this bizarre day at the stock market in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Sean David Morton, a natural psychic, trained remote viewer and remote viewing instructor. He's also an intuitive consultant and investigative reporter. His website is delphiassociates.org. Sean has made predictions about the stock market on Coast to Coast before, so it doesn't come as a surprise. I'm guessing you made $1 million shorting out stock markets, stocks today, huh?
Did pretty well, actually. We're and first off, hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks. Loving to be on the show. Really enjoying it. Some great things, some very interesting things happen. This is very typical of what happens during a very, very harsh Mercury retrograde cycle. Mercury moving backwards in the sky relative to the Earth. Also, because we're just now moving through Pisces, which is water. And we've got some very, very heavy-duty solar stuff that's actually going to be coming up in about the next 2 weeks. But there was this computer glitch that triggered this sudden plunge in the Dow Jones Industrial Average at about mid-afternoon today, which turned this kind of already bad day into stocks into this debacle. The Dow Jones managed to the index of the 30 blue chip stocks discovered the glitch about 2 p.m. or so. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, it's switched to the computer on Wall Street's actually switched to a backup computer
So the result was this sort of massive swoon in the index as the secondary system then took over, processing about 3 o'clock in the afternoon or so. So
a little too late.
Well, but you have to look at it in the perspective. For many years, my being on this program, going all the way back into the 1990s, when I was telling people, I still remember the days when Art and I were laughing about my saying, well, Art, the stock market's going to go to 4,000. And everybody said, oh, that's impossible. Then I said it was going to go to 5. Then 8. And then when I said it was going to go to 10, that was going to be the big barrier. Then I said it was going to go to 12. And this year, one of my predictions actually made in my newsletter and your After Dark magazine as well was that we would see the stock market at 13,000 this year. And, of course, if you're looking at you just have to put it in the perspective of if the stock market's up to a high of about 12,750 or so, and you have a 400-point drop in the market, that's minimal. I mean,
that is a minimal percent.
Yeah, it's like
I mean,
3%.
the number sounds big, but the percent is much lower than it was. Let's say if it was at 6,000,
correct,
and if it popped 500 points down, then that would be huge,
right? Because people are still in the mindset that the market is 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 points, not up into this heady, rarefied, oxygenless atmosphere of 12 to almost 13,000 or so.
I guess you have to look at Berkshire Hathaway stock and realize that these numbers are huge these days.
Yeah, and just I mean I'm not the statistician, but I believe that 400 points out of the high of 12,007 and change is a little less than 4%, I think, or so, and that's basically nothing but a pullback. The good news about this is that when you actually look at what's happening, you always have to have a dip and a draw in profits, obviously, and then the market actually dips down and does what we call kind of parabola waves. There's a whole theory on this called Elliott waves, which is a whole very complex form of predicting the markets that has to do with the Fibonacci wave and curve. That the market is like a wave. It's like an ocean tidal wave. And so when it goes down, it automatically then has to go up. So my projection has been that we would see the markets, we're in this very interesting 6-month cycle. The 6-month cycle, which went from May to approximately November, and I talked about how there would be a major financial implosion or some kind of major event that would happen the last 2 weeks of November. Well, right on schedule, we had this massive sunspot that came along. We had disturbances in the weather, and you had this gigantic attack by the Chinese, the Iranians, the Syrians, and the British on the U.S. dollar that actually started about 4 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning when the markets were closed here.
And has that stopped, Sean?
The attack has stopped, but the Japanese yen, this is what is causing concern on the markets. What I have done is we've started up what I call psychic financial investing. And what I have done is that everybody keeps saying, hey, you've got psychic powers. How come you don't have $1 million? How come you can't predict the markets? So what I started doing is that I started using remote viewing on the foreign exchange markets. And we actually started something called the Delphi Associates Investment Group. We started with a virtual $1 million back in March of last year.
A virtual $1 million.
Well, when we say virtual, it just means kind of like Monopoly money. We were playing with it to see if we could do something with it and to see if my system of remote viewing on a Sunday, 9 base currencies, working with charts, the same process that I use to predict earthquakes and fires and floods and what have you, I was working with charts and sort of scrying and dowsing these things out. I then give them to my partner who runs a trading desk in Vermont. He's got four people working at that office, and they put these up on the wall, and they use these as a weather report, if you will, fair, cloudy, stormy, sunny, what have you, for these certain currencies, and then they start trading the currencies. Well, we've made with the virtual money in about 2.5 to 3 months or so, we made about a 250% profit with the virtual fund. So we started on the 1st of June, actually using our money and just some core investors that came in, and we started with about $35,000. And right now we're managing, I'm actually managing four separate funds that are worth about $4.5 million total, and we've had a Price Waterhouse audit actually on the accounts that shows from the 1st of June through November 15th, a 117% profit on those accounts.
Now, all right, in a day like today,
Yes,
which
sir.
could erase profits
Yeah.
unless you're going the wrong way,
Right.
or should I say the right way, what did you do on a day like today? Did you sell short, or did you are you just going to ride it
No,
out?
you ride this out because here's what's going on. What's going on is that there's some profit taking in the markets. 400 points is just, first off, as I said, 200 of those points was due to a computer glitch on the market specifically, and the market has to go down before it goes up. You're going to see the market hit to about right around 13,000 or so. The ceiling is going to be 13,000. So let's call it.
It was just a bad day on Wall Street.
Right. Let's call it tickling 13 grand. But you are going to see, just as you saw an event in late November with the my one thought that I was finishing was the Japanese yen is the one currency now that is causing nightmares and cold shivers and heart attacks all around the world because the yen began to just jumped off a cliff right around Thanksgiving, and it did not land up until about last week. So now the G7 countries are all getting together and talking about basically building a wall around Japan because Japan has just let their currency completely just go to pot. It means that within the next couple of months, you're going to see Japanese products just dirt cheap. Panasonics, Toyotas, Hondas, they have been willing to cut their own throat, literally, to dump and just pour Japanese products onto the world markets, which means for you and I as Americans, it's a great time for us to go to Japan because the U.S. dollar is worth about 5 times more than it usually is there, but it means that we can't sell anything to the Japanese. So we've got a country of about 200 million people that we can't sell, well, not only us, but the Russians and the Europeans and everybody else, we can't sell our products in Japan right now.
So Game Boy's going to be at a deal, huh?
Everything's going to be really at the rock bottom, and that's been causing the most consternation. But what you will see is the market's heading up, tickling the underside of 13,000 or so in May, and then you're going to see another major event between the 15th and approximately the 30th of May. That is going to be another major retracement. And we're not talking 400 points. We're talking probably, I'd say 800 to 1,200 points or so, which is still, if you're really looking at it, still only a drop of about 10% in the market.
Is that healthy, Sean? A healthy drop?
It's good. Well, obviously you make money up and you make money going down. The challenge is that globally, economically speaking, our real estate market is beginning to collapse as predicted. The dollar is stretched in just this crazy way. The Chinese almost dumped $1 trillion US on the world market, and the only thing that stopped them was the Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of Commerce, and our economic A-team actually going to China and basically threatening the Chinese, basically saying to them, how'd you like to go without oil for a month? How'd you like to see us blow up 100 miles worth of pipeline between you and Iran? And the Chinese said, we don't think the United States would do anything that insane. And supposedly, the Secretary of the Treasury said, have you met the guy I work for? And that's what stopped the Chinese from dumping $1 trillion. But we are right now to the point of where our fiscal spending is completely out of control. Our personal debt is out of control. I don't know how they're walking this economic tightrope right now in the fact that we're facing a 20% inflation index in the last year. The entire economy has become a black market operation because they stopped reporting how much money is in the economy on what's called the M3 index last March. And we talked about all this on this program. We gave everybody a preview of what was going to be happening here. And again, as far as the stocks, just a couple of things, just briefly in point, a couple of stocks that we talked about right here. I talked about XM and Sirius Radio. I thought that XM was going to buy Sirius. Now it turns out it's the other way around, where Sirius is going to buy XM.
Well, but you were close.
One way or another, we were talking about those two companies merging. Right. We were talking about that years ago when they first came out. Caterpillar was another huge pick that we talked about on this program. And now Bill Gates, the two big things we talked about on Coast to Coast. We talked about silver outperforming just about everything except copper, and we talked about Caterpillar tractors. And at the time we talked about Caterpillar, I think it was $90 a share. It went to about 110. It split, went down about $40 a share after the split, went back up again. Now Bill Gates has now dumped virtually all of his U.S. real estate holdings and has now become one of the largest single owners of Caterpillar tractor stock. And this is after we were talking about it back in the day about a year or so ago. And again, I just have to mention this because we talked about this on the program a month ago. We talked about the stock Nutricea, which is NTRZ.
Mm-hmm.
You realize that Nutricea, since we first mentioned Nutricea on this program, which was in July of 2005 when the stock was 61 cents, January, right around Christmas, the stock was $2.19. And just since we've been talking about it in the last month, in 30 days, the stock has hit a high of $3.61.
That's amazing.
So think about that from when we first started talking about it, from when the stock first went from maybe trading about 600 shares or so to our talking about it on this program, really putting it on the map. The almost $500 million was poured into the company and people getting stock in the company. Now they've gotten a $50 million bank credit from Bank Swiss, and they're talking about doing hospitals and feeding programs, and it's the perfect, I guess you would call it, enlightened investment company, because it's a company that is all about feeding people and doing charity work and doing tests to improve people's health.
So you see some high points. You see some high points throughout this entire year.
Well, yeah, sure. The high points are going to be that the stock market is going up and up and up and up and up, but it's what I coined a term called the Jenga economy. And for anybody that's ever played that game, you played that game Jenga, right?
Sure.
Well, it's a Jenga.
I haven't played it, but I know about it.
Well, it's a Jenga economy because what's happening is that you've got about 30 blue chip stock companies that are driving the entire market. The challenge is that the big companies have eaten all the little companies, which means that there's no room for the little guy. There's no room for small business. There's no room for, and of course the challenge of these large corporations is that now the tower just keeps getting taller and taller and taller and taller, but there's no foundation. It's a skyscraper instead of a pyramid, if you will. So there's very little underneath it. And this Jenga economy, when it collapses, and I've said this once and I'll say it again, November of this coming year is going to be the make or break point for an economic Armageddon that is going to see a major political and economic shift away from the United States towards Europe, towards the euro being backed by anywhere, I would say, liberally speaking, about 30% gold or so.
Do you factor in Iran, Iraq?
Well, the war right now is being planned for April 7th. That seems to be the go date when we will actually have boots on the ground, finish our bases in Romania and Bulgaria. Bush fired everybody that disagreed with him taking action last year. He's replaced a general with an admiral that is a very serious neocon, who's somebody that is slavishly devoted to Israeli interests in the region, and somebody specifically that is very, very good at air and basically air and sea style strikes. We've got 2 compact carrier groups there now. Bush is talking about a surge of only 20,000 troops when, in fact, the Pentagon's actually ordered 65,000 troops. So factoring that in, actually what that will do is that will actually make the dollar stronger, because whenever the United States is actually pointing a gun at somebody's head, it actually and
Why?
expanding.
Why would it be stronger, though?
Because it
30 seconds left.
Because it expands the U.S.'s control over oil, and as long as we control oil, that will keep the dollar strong and basically allow us to control the economies of China, Russia, and Europe. You control Asia Minor, you control all of Asia for basically the rest of the 20th
Well, are you saying if we walked out of Iraq right now and just let the Iraqis deal with their own oil situation officially, the dollar would plummet?
Yes. And you
Really?
would see the Turks move in the north, and you would see the Iranians take the oil fields in the south, which is 20% of the world's oil, which means we can't walk out. We're stuck.
We're trapped between a rock and a hard place.
Absolutely.
Sean.
Hey,
All
George,
right.
thanks for having me on, buddy.
All right, my friend. Okay. Sean David Morton, DelphiAssociates.org. That's his website. Read all about it. In a moment, Red Elk joins us. He's a tribal medicine man, and he's one of the best. So get ready for that. If you need to email me, that's very simple, george@coasttocoastam.com. Well, Red Elk will be leaving the public's eyes soon, but not before he joins us here on Coast to Coast AM. Our special guest is next. Don't go away. Red Elk is an tribal medicine man. He is a self-described half-breed Native American of the Blackfeet and Shoshone nations, as well as part Irish and French. He is a member of the Hayaka Society, a contrarian group of Native Americans who do not follow the normal path of mankind. He is one of the 9 members of the Red Web Society, working to bring understanding of many hidden sacred teachings to the people here on Earth. He's also an honorary member of the Cherokee Nation's Twisted Hair Society. In 1973, Red Elk went on a 69-day fast, taking water, juices, vitamins. On or about the 49th day, Red Elk began to experience a vision about the future. And for a little more than an hour each day for 3 days, Red Elk saw and experienced a future that he did not want to see. He's our very special guest tonight on Coast to Coast, welcoming him back to the airwaves, Red Elk. Hello, Red Elk. Thank you for coming back here.
Thank you, my brother, for inviting me. And, boy, that little introduction reminded me of what I did see, and I still don't want to see it. But I'm seeing it happen. I
know. We'll talk about that. You know, when I was doing some research about your visit today, and I was on your website, and I saw something that said, I'm leaving the public's eye soon. It bothered me, but I wanted to ask you, so why? Well, what is going to become of Red Elk?
Only the Great One knows that. Right now, I'm in the process of finishing a book, and I don't even know how I'll advertise it because I don't intend to be back on anywhere, or let alone my own website. And by the way, if anyone is interested in that website, please go to it and copy it off. It's unusual. And go to all the archives and stuff like that, because that's going to end that way. I do have a problem in the sense that I don't want my domain name to just go.
Right.
Because I've watched people grab something that has been, really good things, and all of a sudden it's on Prono or something like that. So I just don't know what to do. I have to keep. I don't want to sell it, and I don't. So I guess I have to pay for it for the rest of my life. But I don't know. But,
well, maybe we can get some people who understand domains, and they might be able to hold it for you for, as long as you want or something. We can work something out on that, Red.
I didn't even know that was possible. Yeah. I'm still a one-finger typer. And I tell you, Mr. Norrie, before we carry on, allow me to say this to the people, and you too. Do not believe a word I say. Please check it, and check it 3 times, and find out if I tell truth or lies. And that's just something that you check it in your own way. But don't believe it. Don't walk off saying Red Elk said. I don't want people creating a religion around Red Elk or whatnot. And, so please don't do that. That's number 1. Number 2, Mr. Norrie, I have ached to get a hold of you personally, because the last show you and I did, I was on a roll. I was tired. There's no real excuse, but nevertheless, I was on a roll, and we were talking about confessing your disobedience to the Creator. It's called sin in the Bible, but it means disobey. And I said it doesn't, it goes from you to the person that you did it to, not to and for the life of me, my brother. Forgive me, please. I could not think of a Catholic, the word priest or confessional. So I blurted out. I was on a roll, and it doesn't mean go to some dweeb in a box. And Mr. Norrie, that line between you and me turned to pure ice. And I thought, oh, God, this man's Catholic, and I just blew it. I apologize to you and to all that heard.
Do not owe me an apology at all.
Well, for my sake, then, I do, and I beg forgiveness. I am sorry, and I'm glad that you... And it really turned to ice. But I didn't stick my tongue on the phone. I had never gotten it off until spring.
I was so enamored with what you were saying. Anyway, Red Elk, it was fine. Don't worry about that.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much.
Over the course of the last few years, some people have sent me emails, and they had said that you weren't feeling well, your health was failing, and I wanted to just ask you first, as someone who's part of the Coast to Coast family. Everyone cares about you. How are you doing health-wise? Are you okay?
I could be better, but I'm going to live a long time. I just, I'm going to be all right. I had to get a toe cut off, and did I have fun, and still do with that toe. I told the doc, save it. I got to bury it. It's part of my soul. It's a way of the Indian, way of, anyway. And it's not buried yet, and that was 2 years ago. It's still sitting in the freezer. I could tell you a story that would, I tell you, Mr. Noy, or if you don't mind, I call people brother and sister because we're all from the same mind.
You can call me brother. You can call me anything you want, Red Elk.
Well, we're all from the same mind womb of the Creator. So therefore, we're from the same womb, and you are my brothers and sisters. And if you don't like it tough, you probably have trouble with a brother or sister in your own house, too, but doesn't mean you don't love them. But, so don't be offended, anybody, when I say brother and sister. And besides, I've written and talked to and met thousands of people, literally, since 1999. And I can't remember these names, So brother and sister works out real good for this old geezer.
Well, you keep fighting it. We're on for 3 hours tonight, so if you can hold on with that, I'd love to have you for the full program.
Not a problem. But, Mr. Norrie, brother, I don't like calling people Mr., and believe it or not, the Indians don't like that.
Call me George, call me brother, whatever you feel comfortable calling me.
Hi. Thank you. That's Cree for yes. I thank you very much.
I have, and we all have enjoyed your earlier conversations with Art Bell and with Ian, and I was lucky enough to talk to you several years ago as well. So much has changed, Red Elk, since your appearances. This entire planet sometimes seems upside down. Are we in the middle of what you were talking about over the years? Is this happening?
In the middle, my friend. We are just at the very beginning. You think it's bad now? Oh, man. If it holds true what I've been shown. This is terrible. This is really bad. I tell you, one of the things that is going to rock the United States through the catastrophes that we're going to face from war, and we lose, to volcanic activity, unbelievable spots that pop up that science don't even know about, earthquakes that are going to open up that science doesn't know about. Seattle's going to take a flying dip into Puget Sound and kiss off Seattle. And if this all holds true, and so far, everything, like I said, I got my toe cut off, and in my great vision, it showed me with 2 crippled feet. And right now, I got the coldest feet in the world, and it doesn't surprise me at all. I'm living proof of what Papa had shown me in that maybe just a hair over 3-hour vision over the 3 days. And so I rejoice in that. But I'm saddened because it can be changed, and so few pay attention to most of the so-called Christian world. I'm of the devil. I've been called every name in the book, and believe it or not, I know a number of different swear words in different languages, and so I can understand when a Pole is telling me he thinks I'm crazy in no uncertain terms, or Chinese or Indian and stuff like that. And boy, I have been this has been a very fascinating time. I thought I had it fascinating as a medicine Wiccan before I went on to Art Bell. But holy mackerel, and the things that I've experienced, and that bad that people try to throw at me, they're throwing in that the one that I love very much and is with me. And so they're really striking out at this one, not me, the one that we call Big Brother, that the world calls Christ.
So many new people have joined the program over the last couple of years since you've been on, and some may be saying tonight, who is Red Elk? So if you could just explain to them, Red Elk, just, who you are and these visions that you saw and how they came to you.
Well, I can tell you, get a pencil and paper, readers, and I'll give you a phone number if it's all right with you, Mr. Bell.
Sure.
And here in a few minutes, get you a chance to get that. But I look white, and I'm what the Indian world today calls Metic, which means half-breed.
Okay.
And I don't mind using the old word half-breed. Half-breed's a half-breed. You can fancy it up with apple pie and ice cream, but it's still a half-breed, And when I was a little tiny kid, a Wakayan medicine man of the Yakima tribe in Yakima, Washington State, would visit our house on the way to the rodeo there in Ellensburg, Washington, and always stop and have Mom wash his blanket, or rather his loincloth and his blanket occasionally. And he'd set in the outhouse while she washed it and pounded it in the old-fashioned way, and he'd bring something, quail or grouse or rabbit for the family of 5 plus her and Dad, and in exchange. And I don't remember the first year of this gentleman, but Mom told me about it. And but I sure remember 2, 3, and 4. And on the 4th one, he never spoke anything but Indian, and that was maybe 4 words, and none of us understood it. But on that 4th year, he came back out of the rodeo to the house, which he'd never done, and it scared the daylights out of Mom. Mm-hmm. My mom was Indian and didn't want anybody to know it. She told him she was Egyptian. And, well, that was in the days. To be Indian was to be worse than a black man, and you know the name that they used then.
Yeah.
Far worse. So Mom didn't want us to go through that pain, and then gave us a white name. And, yeah, well, when she died a couple of years later, I said, "That's it, Mom. I'm Indian. Dang it, like it or not, you're a dead woman. I'm gone. I'm Red Elk. I go to my name." And but nevertheless, he came back, and Mom came out wringing her hands. I remember, what's going on? Why this? And by the way, this Indian, when he go into the encampment where the Indians went for the rodeo, they parted like the Red Sea. And people all the kids would get running around and yelling and playing, and all of a sudden on each side, this man would walk right down through the middle, and they would bow their heads, and they held him not in fear, but in great high esteem. And I called him Chief, and I liked the old guy. And he came back and he put his arm. He walked up to me, and the 5 kids were all huddled together. What's the old guy going to do, And he came up to me and put his arms on my shoulder. And we didn't know the man could speak English. And he looked at my mother and he said, "One day, this boy will grow up to," what is that I'm trying to quote, "will grow up to there's a word I can't think of offhand."
It's right there on the tip of your tongue, isn't it?
Not my tongue. It just dropped down into the bottom of my foot. But nevertheless, this boy will one day grow up to do many great things for his people. And then he put his hand on my head and shut his eyes. I guess he was giving me a blessing. He said nothing. And then he walked away, and we moved, and it's the last time we saw him. And I was called in the proper Indian way to study the work of medicine. There's a certain way that we're called, and But unlike all the other Native Americans of the United States and Canada and South America, my training didn't stop. Generally, some tribes go 5 years, some do 7. The Cherokee do 12 or 17 before you can put out your shingle.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, but mine lasted 42 years before so. And I was put into the Inahayuka Society, and there's only 12 of us left, and as we die off, we are the last 12 of this long-standing, long before traditional Indians. The tradition started with the 13th or 8th, there were originally 13.
Do you all agree with the same visions?
Oh, yes.
You do? Okay.
Yes, and I'm speaking of the Inahayuka.
Yeah.
And we're trained to check everything 3 times. Sometimes we even, can't believe what we're seeing or hearing. So we go beyond 3 times, but it always works out. And occasionally one will drift across the way of the other one, and did you see this or did you know that? Yeah, what did you get, And it's always been identical. My brother, it's a fascinating, each of us 12. There's never been a 13th since he broke away and started tradition.
How close are these visions to, let's say, the Hopis?
Just about dead on.
Are they? Same, okay.
Yeah, just in different cultural, within different nations, things like that. Yeah. And those, I happened to catch that the night the Hopi gentlemen were on. And everybody was in awe, and I laughed because all of that information that they put out are, I'm not accusing them of doing this, are all in books, separate books. A little piece here, a little piece there, a little piece there. So, over the years, Indians have, the Hopi people have told, well, it won't hurt to tell a little bit. But another one does it. It won't hurt to tell a little. And it all just, if you own those books, and I have over 6 tons of books on how to and Indian things and stuff like that. So, I'm quite a reader. And, anyway, everything they said was in a series of different books from different authors, Indian authors. So it didn't surprise me at all. But I give them credit. They went against tradition. They did why we, the native, we hold sacred knowledge. And they went against the tradition of, no, we keep this for ourselves. Because now's the time, and I begged, many people, Indian people, loose the knowledge. You've got it because it's to be given for now.
Red Elk, when we come back, let's talk about some of these visions. We'll also talk about these huge Thunderbirds that you've heard so much about. Who are the lizard people? And what's going on right now in the inner earth? Next up, Red Elk. I'm George Norrie. This is Coast to Coast AM. Wanted you to know, during the last hour of the program, we'll open up the phone lines. I'd love for you to have the privilege to ask a question or chat with Red Elk. So we'll do that in the last hour here on Coast to Coast. March 2nd, I'll be at the Verizon Wireless Theater in Houston, so come on by and say hello. The book signing for Worker in the Light will be at 7 o'clock, with the event starting at 8:15. If you want more information, go to ktrh.com and simply read all about it. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie with our special guest tonight, Red Elk. Red, good to have you back with us again.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be back, believe it or not. It really is. Been hectic, I tell you. I got introduced to the world in a big way at there.
You sure did. It was huge.
Oh, Lord, that first year I got so much mail. We're broke. folks. We're dead broke. We're still trying to crawl out of that. I've asked everybody to send a self-addressed stamped envelope and $2 for my time. I made under $147 that way, but personally, handwritten, I answered. I quit counting.
It took you years to get back to everybody, didn't it?
5 years, yes. But I quit counting handwritten notes that I sent and I had to pay stamps for because these people are dingbats, you know. Everybody thinks they're the only one on earth that's going to write me. And we went up into $86,000 in debt, and right now we're at $42,000. We're getting it down.
Gosh.
And but I just couldn't turn people down. And, folks, I wrote everybody that I got letters from. Maybe I didn't get a letter, and you never heard from me. But over that 5-year period of sending mail back, and that was just handwritten, 80,000 I quit counting. And then a volunteer came and started typing for several days. And it just went on and on. It hasn't stopped, really.
My gosh, you can't take much more then, right? Obviously.
Well, it's wore me out. I've had a heart attack, one near one. I had a stroke and 2 near ones. And I told the doctor I had a heart attack, and I had to have this surgery, and they needed all kinds of crud, you know, and they put me on a throttle, you know, treadmill or whatever, and then, you know, paid out all kinds of great money I didn't have. I finally got that paid off, but anyway, and the end result, I walked in the office for a report pre-surgery, and he said, "You had a heart attack." And I tell you, this old man, I got my ups and downs, and I really get ticked off sometimes. And I looked at him, and pardon me, and I said, "Damn it, doctor, I told you that in the first place. If you just listened to me, boy, I'd chew that poor guy out." When he said, "Well, why didn't you come in?" And I said, "What are you going to do? You're going to put me in a dark room, lay me on my back." I know I've had EMT training. And anyway, and all you're going to do is monitor me and give me aspirins. And by the way, Bare aspirin, you know, they're charging $10 per aspirin. $10
in the hospitals.
That's right.
You should be better off to walk in with your own bottle.
Yeah. But nevertheless, I said, that's what you're going to do. Monitor me, make me lay on my back. I've never slept on my back in life. And I says, and then when the heart heals, I says, shoot, you're going to send me a bill and kill me with a heart attack.
Yeah, I can believe that. Hey, we've been getting incredible calls over the last several years from people witnessing these huge birds.
Oh, good. Yeah, go ahead, man. I love this. I have a special thing to do. I'll share it with the people.
Okay.
And you, my brother.
Now, you call them the Thunderbirds, right?
Yeah, Pika.
What are they?
They are birds that existed long ago, never ceased. They're mostly down in South America. They have a breeding ground in that area. But they are slowly coming back to the States. Now, 2 years ago, I spent 3 months with the Cree Indians. Boy, there's a group of Indians who, you know, wow, my heart is with the Crees. I love them.
Now, where are they located?
All over Canada and down into the United States,
okay.
Coast to coast. They are a huge bunch of sweethearts. And some pains in the rear, but as a nation, I love them. I wish I was Cree. But nevertheless, I was at this, asked to come up to this big Cree gathering and speak, and I did, and I think there was five women came to me, and very hesitantly, and said, Red Duck, we have something to share. And you could see they felt they were in trouble sharing this. You could see it in their eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, it turns out they are the protectors of a certain spot concerning the Thunderbirds up in Canada, way up, real close to the Yukon. And they belong to a society. And they were stepping out of bounds from the society by coming to me in this group and presenting this knowledge to me. And I raised my hand and I said, wait. let me tell you, you are the protector of the Thunderbird cave, the bird cave, it's called.
A bird cave.
The three mountains up there by the Yukon, and they look totally shocked. And I said, that is in a face of a cliff of the three mountains. And that is a slope that goes down inside, a rock slope. It's almost like granite, a whole mountain, or that face. And I says, it ends at a T, and if you go left, you're going to learn bad knowledge, evil. If you go right, you will learn all sacred good knowledge. And this is what you're protecting. And, man, they started chatting away in Cree, and one of them looked at me at first and said, he knows. Well, sure I know. You know, part of my job is to know about tunnels and caves and stuff like that. But anyway, I am, folks, hear me. I haven't got a dime to do it. I got a busted truck that's going to cost me quite a bit of money just to get back up there. And I am called to go back to the sacred bird cave.
Is this like a breeding grounds up there?
It was the ancient breeding ground before the flip, that one of the 4 flips of Earth, or 5. Well, this is 5. We're in the process of. And what happened is explosions of volcanoes and everything, and they left their eggs there. They fled. And, I rode them. I rode their mind. The medicine people know what I'm talking about.
I understand, yeah.
And they were screaming, what about our children, you know, ready to hatch, babies. Oh, they were so human in emotion, it was unbelievable. Pterodactyls flying around, thousands of birds. But these are the brilliant ones of the birds. These are the human type thinkers of the birds.
I heard they had like a 20-foot wingspan, red elk.
Generally 22 on average, but they do go up to 27 and I think 28.
Huge.
Oh yes, and they're beautiful. They're eagles, but they're just they're something else. And anyway, I've got to go up there, and the top medicine man of the Cree. Oh, across Canada, the #1 medicine man. He's got to make me, and he's going to an eagle flute, or not flute, but whistle. And I've got to climb that mountain with this old body and this one toe missing, the one next to it.
How are you going to do that?
I'll do it. It's my calling. I'll do it if I've got the money to do it, and I'll have a lot of Crees if they got to go to the top of the mountain and tie rope after rope after rope and throw it down and haul me to that place. They'll do it. That kind of people, and I will call. I've got a certain ceremony, and I will literally call them back to their old breeding ground. And this is one of the jobs that I've got to do in Canada. But I only have 3 backers, a man and a wife and a single man, that every month, like clockwork, they send me a little bit of money. Those are the only backers that I have that I can count on. And it's always less than $200 a month, and I use that amount a week on gas. And so, yeah, between me.
How big were these eggs, or are these eggs?
Well, Alex Kahanaku is the Cree that I'm speaking of, the medicine man. And he, at this meeting I told you about, the powwow, the big powwow means meeting. And he came to me, and I was sitting outside this huge lodge, meeting lodge, a big teepee. And he said, Red Elk, I have some men that would like to talk to you, and I'd show you something. And I said, well, sure, you know. And they brought in this stone about the size of a woman's bowling ball, you know, smaller size.
Yeah.
Perfectly round. And they brought it to me, and he talked to him in Cree, and I said, well, give it to me and let me see what it's all about. And so they handed me the stone. And I held it, and I shut my eyes and do what I do, and then I placed it to my forehead, and I was shocked, and I looked up, and I said, this is not a stone, this is an egg. It's a Thunderbird egg.
My God.
And there's an embryo inside, a prehistoric, not an old stone embryo. And it was about to give birth and peck its way out. And they got all excited. He was telling them, he could speak White and Greek. They got all excited because they is in a protected area, and they have prehistoric stone stick nests with these eggs in it up there.
They must have been huge, the nests.
From what I see, yeah, they're pretty darn big. Yeah, but they're like our eagle nests, except they were in the rocks, on the rocks and stuff, not in trees. And they had this whole area, these 3 mountains hold these things, and they're very sacred. And they try to keep the whites away from it because these dang whites, they get on anything, and oh boy, I'm going to have that for my collection or go bowling or
put
whatnot.
it in a zoo or something.
Yeah, we're a bunch of idiots. But nevertheless, I'm to go back and call the Thunderbirds home, and you will see them all over North America again. They're there. They're rare, and it's hard to find them because they ride the storm.
Heard some scary stories that they have in the past tried to pick up children.
Oh, yeah.
They do that.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. Well, sure, but basically, a regular eagle is a scavenger. It'll go down, and you see them when the cows are calving, and they eat the placenta and stuff like that. And they will grab a young calf, a very little calf, our eagles, if they can do it, and try to haul it off.
Yeah.
And what happened is, as they were migrating down into South America and sticking around the states, lower states, over a long time period, they would follow the great buffalo herds and do the same thing, eat the placenta. Now, these are Thunderbirds. And grab calves, and they're much bigger, and they could get some buffalo calves. White man, being white man, oh boy, let's go out and kill these things, and not birds, but the buffalo. So they had to travel on because there was not these vast herds that they could eat off of. So they ended up down south. There's not a lot left, but they're coming back and they're going to breed. But I've got to do that ceremony, that service
with the whistle.
With the whistle and with some other things, but
there's an old legend in Alton, Illinois, old Native American legend about what is called the Piasa bird. And they've got this picture, this huge sketched picture up on the banks of the Mississippi. And there's a story, Red Elk, that goes with it, that they used to fight this huge bird as it would swoop down. And I don't know how much of it is legend and how much of it is real, but it sounds like a Thunderbird.
It sounds like it, and I'll tell you, this is true, folks. You don't have to believe it. But unlike the rest of the world, the Indians are very truthful. And if you've heard that legend, you can bet on it.
Yeah. Something happened a long time ago.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just one of the things I've got to do. There's a woman's staff.
How old are you now?
I'll be 65 June the 18th.
My God, you don't stop, do you?
No, I won't stop until I'm 157.
Well, your website's still up and running, right?
Yes, for those that would get your pencil and paper, please.
Yeah, let's give your way. We got a link up for you, but there are some people driving their cars and trucks, and so why don't you give them your website? If you
the website is simple. Just if you want, just write redout.org, and then press that, and it'll come up www/ and redout.org. Now make sure it's ORG. If it's net, you're going to get the Red Elk hunting lodge. So it's redout.org. And please do yourself a service. go through all of it, all the old website, the archives, and everything else, and look at it. I've spent 6 years now.
Is that old classic DVD still available? Your Vision DVD?
Oh, yes. And matter of fact, if anybody ready to write a phone number and want to order it without, if you can't get a computer, the information is on the computer. If you're interested in it, it took 11.5 hours to tape, and they cut it down. I don't know.
Couple hours at least.
An hour and 47 minutes or something. Missed quite a bit, but did as good as they could, and they did pretty good. But there's a toll-free number, and there is somebody standing by now, that type of thing. And this was all set up just three days ago, and the number is 888-999-1985.
Oh, that's easy to remember.
1985.
It's very easy to remember. 888-999-1985.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And you can call there anytime. And by the way, I was told I've only got one line, so if it's busy, just keep calling.
Keep calling. All day, all night, all week.
Yeah. Keep the poor bugger awake.
Right. We're going to talk with you about lizard people next hour. But these visions that you've seen and the other members of the Hayoka Society, Hayoka. Hayoka.
Actually, it's Hayoka, but I try to sound it out for you people.
Can these visions be changed? Can they be opened?
Yes, my brother. Thank you. Yes. Poor Lisa, Lion, she says, don't you have anything but doom and gloom? and my guy said, aren't you listening to the show, lady, I said, we can change these things. I tell about the doom and the gloom, but it doesn't have to be. And that's one reason I'm in Menominee, Wisconsin at this moment. I was with Mr. Stuart Best doing Earth Changes documentary that he's going to put out. And it's over now. I leave in the morning and drive almost 1,000 miles through snow and storms. Pray for me, folks.
You do this all by yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, my. All right, you stay healthy.
But, yes, it can be changed. We are Nineveh. The place called Earth is equivalent to Nineveh, which was an event in the Scriptures foretelling about this event coming. Because Nineveh was so anti-God and doing their own thing, God sent Jonah to go and warn him. I'm going to destroy you in 3 days. Well, you know that story. But after he got vomited up at the beach, he decided, well, maybe I better do it. Who knows? Maybe a giant sand flea will get me next. And anyway, so he told the king, and the whole city, the whole nation of Nineveh repented. That means that better than 85% up repented, which means turn away from sin, turn away from disobedience to the Creator, God. That's what those two words mean, turn away from disobedience.
All right, Red Elk, we'll be back with you in just a moment. Fascinating. Lizard people, who are they? That's next on Coast to Coast AM. With our very special guest tonight, Red Elk. Lots more to talk with him about. The next hour, I'll open up the phone lines. We'll give you the privilege. Back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Red Elk, this was a little before my time here, but did you ever go hunting for that Mel's Hole? Remember that story?
Yes, that's the one that got me with Mr. Bell in first place.
Yeah, all right, what happened about that?
Well, it's there. I've been called all kinds of liar and stuff like that. It's covered by an outbuilding, and anybody crazy enough to go on that piece of land, they're out of their tree. It's got plants that are plastic, that they're sound sensors. It's well protected. This little outbuilding is maybe 16 by 16, all the way around, maybe. And oddly enough, I thought the roof lifted. But no, it opens like a book. And at certain times they open this up, and big ships come down and unload and load, and yeah, it's there. And I don't care. I don't care what you believe. I don't care if you think I'm nuts. I'm not here to lie to people. And I moved some 8.5 miles away from where I had been during that time, and it appears that the UFO activity that was sporadic, but quite a bit of it.
From the City of Angels off the Pacific Ocean, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie, and welcome to Coast AM. I've got some audio of what some say is an angel singing in a Kansas City church. It's pretty difficult to hear, and it is very quick, but we'll play that for you sometime this hour. In next hour, the astounding tribal medicine man, Red Elk, on his final voyage, and we've got him live here on Coast AM next hour. Well, stocks slumped Tuesday on worries about economic growth at home and abroad, sending the Dow Industrials to the biggest point drop since the day the market reopened after the 9/11 attacks. A big decline in Chinese stocks, weakness in some key readings on the U.S. economy, and news that Vice President Dick Cheney was the apparent target in a Taliban suicide bombing attack in Afghanistan, all fueled the selling on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled 416 points. It was down over 500 for a while. The biggest point loss since September 17th of 2001. The New York Stock Exchange officials are investigating whether a technical glitch contributed to this dramatic plunge in the Dow that saw the blue chips average point loss double and up to 200 points in just a matter of minutes. In a moment, the Merlin Project boys will join us as we talk about this plunge. Merlin, the software giant, well, it predicted this collapse. An astounding video uncovered from the archives shows the BBC reported on the collapse of the World Trade Center Building 7 over 20 minutes before it fell at 5:20 p.m. in the afternoon of 9/11. The footage shows BBC reporter Jane Standley talking about the collapse of
the demolition failed, front page of the Statesman on Monday. So it's hard to do. It takes months and sometimes longer to set these up properly. Building 7 was filled with the FBI, CIA, Defense Intelligence. The whole thing basically was a mini CIA building, the emergency bunker. We know it was brought down by controlled demolition.
Now, what's your theory, though, Alex, with the fact that, let's just center in on this BBC reporter for just a moment, which,
Sure.
By the way, I'm told today they also claim that those tapes are no longer available.
Yes, I'm looking right now at the BBC. The editor, the head of BBC World News, Richard Porter, has put out a press release at BBC's own website, we have links to it, saying that they can't release the original archives because they can't find them. That there's been I've now talked to a CNN archivist who I'm friends with, and they say that they record on triple machines and even computers in 2001. They say that is impossible, and we've caught the BBC using clips from this in recent productions. It's not true.
Now tell me the significance, and tell me your theory, the fact that she's standing far away but in front of building number 7, saying that it has collapsed, and you can see it behind her intact. What does this mean to you?
When they introduce her, in London, they give the official line that it fell because the North Tower fell into it, which isn't true.
And they're crawling underneath her that it's collapsed.
Yes, they're crawling underneath her that it's collapsed. So they've got all... Now we've got Aaron Brown, CNN, and another BBC, because they have like 5 channels, saying the exact same thing at the exact same time. This all starts 28 minutes before it collapses. This was basically the Black Ops Squad above our government that's behind many of the militants. We've talked about this before, putting out their official story because they knew that 7 falling wouldn't be bought by the people, and somehow their scripting got off, and so it got out in time.
Oh, so it got out before the building actually came down.
It was a false start.
Oh, my gosh.
This is so...
You know what this reminds me of? And, Alex, we've got to run, but we're going to get you back at this in depth because I'm going to put together more on this story. This reminds me when I was 13, but I heard about this, of the Lee Harvey Oswald days when Kennedy was assassinated, when apparently it was already printed in European newspapers that he was the assassin before they even caught him.
Well, before Kennedy was even killed, it was printed in Tokyo and China and Australia, and I have the original news articles. I'm actually making a film about that. One of them cost me like $700.
Okay, well, more on this. More on this. Websites, which ones do you recommend tonight?
Jones Report, we sent it to Lex, but it's up on jonesreport.com. I literally, just 30 minutes ago or so, finished a detailed report with the CNN, the second BBC, because at first they were saying, oh, it's a screw-up, it's a timestamp. No, Building 7 is right behind her. She steps aside, and then she seems shocked. Then suddenly the satellite feed cuts out, and they cut back 5 minutes later when it has collapsed and go, oh, see, it's collapsed.
Yeah, you're right. All right, Alex, keep in touch with me.
George, thank you. This is the biggest thing I've ever seen. Thanks for having me on.
It is a bizarre story, folks, and it is going to be a big one. Mark my word. In San Diego, a human head and a hand found Tuesday along two busy San Diego freeways may belong to an unidentified man discovered floating in a river. A tow truck driver spotted a black plastic bag containing the head on the southbound Interstate 5 around 6:30 in the morning. The left hand was found by a freeway, the Solomon Brothers building, that's number 7, while it remained standing in the live shot right behind her head. And minutes before the actual collapse of the building was due, the feed to the reporter mysteriously dies. And there's more on the story, so we're checking in now with Alex Jones. Websites Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com. Alex, this one is going to add fuel to the fire, isn't it?
George, this is the biggest 9/11 story we've ever seen. It has gone supernova on the web. And since we did more research, we discovered that Aaron Brown, around the same time on CNN, announced that it had collapsed with it behind him, reading off a teleprompter. We also now found BBC 24, their other feed, with separate reporters saying the exact same thing, saying just in, the North Tower has collapsed. It has caused fires. Building 7, the Solomon Brothers building, has collapsed. Then BBC began demanding that Google and YouTube pull all these clips, and then today, and we have this up on PrisonPlanet.com, new report I just finished 25 minutes ago up on JonesReport.com. That was my only webmaster that was still at work.
Still working today.
So it's up on, I was just at the office. I just drove home to do this interview. Up on JonesReport.com, we have the latest developments with the CNN clip and another BBC clip where they're saying, we've been told Building 7 has collapsed, and it's right behind them. Now, we have literally over 75 police, firemen, and emergency workers on record who said they were told it was going to be brought down by the government via controlled demolition to save buildings nearby. Here's the problem. It takes weeks, if not months, to blow up a building. Just last Sunday here in Austin, they tried to blow up the old Intel building. A
maintenance worker less than 2 hours later. Police believe the body parts belonged to a man whose torso was found Monday floating in a river under the interstate. They described the victim as balding, 60 years old, a white male with a mustache, glasses, was wearing a plaid shirt and jeans. Strange story there. Yesterday, we had the story about Al Gore's house and the fact that the Tennessee Center for Policy Research claimed that he was spending close to $30,000 a year in power utility bills, 20 times more than the average American spends. They found that to be a little hypocritical in light of his Oscar-winning global movie, An Inconvenient Truth. Well, today we've got a statement from the Gore camp, and it's only fair to give that to you. Kaylee Kreider, Al Gore's spokesperson, doesn't dispute the numbers of the report, but she says the numbers need a little context. She says that Gore's message is consistent with his lifestyle. He has said that families and organizations are going to use different amounts of energy and that they should first determine their carbon footprint. Now, that is the overall energy usage in terms of carbon emissions, and do their best to reduce it. The Gore's home carbon neutral, according to Kreider, meaning that the overall household use of carbon-based energy, like coal-fired power plants and natural gas, is offset either by more fuel-efficient technology or through programs aimed at reducing greenhouse gas-producing energy. Now, one is through the local power company, the huge Tennessee Valley Authority, which runs what is called the Green Power Switch program that uses some renewable energy like wind and solar. The second is through a so-called carbon credit program in which the Gores pay money to invest in a third party to reduce the